Hi everyone, welcome to the Not2Shabby channel. This is Dalis, also known as Stamper Girl. I am coloring this stamp of the month, which is called From Our Kitchen for August 2023, and I'm using Prima Marketing watercolors. This is the classic collection, and I am gonna start with the jars. I already stamped this with black in a watercolor safe color, and I always start with a wash, which is water and the color that I want to use, in this case the red, and then I start adding dots and little touches to where I want my shadow to be. I try to make at least 3 items that are the same color, so it looks more well put together when if I use all items in my card. In here I am doing the little fabric of the what I call the empty jar on this set. And a tip when you're doing your watercolors, grab some inspiration from your paper. I'm using It's Apple Season, which is from the box of the month from last month, which goes perfectly with this month's stamp of the month. The stamp of the month subscription right now, the combination of stamp and die, it's sold out, but you can always sign up for to get a notification if we get more. But we have available the stamp. I did a little hard just by pressing the tips of my paintbrush into the cup, and there I have my 3 items with red. Right now I'm just cleaning up my paintbrush. So I'm deciding, do I want that peach or that pink? What is going to be my next color? My next color is going to be actually green, because that big fat jar that is there, I am seeing pickles, and I can't go anywhere else other than pickles for this card because that's what I thought. The green in this classic collection is really bright. So this color that I am swatching right now is the first one is the original green, the one in the right, and the other one is I added some brown to the green. And I'm thinking, do I want to go lighter? So I'm going to do, again, another wash, which is water in my color. And I am using the original color for my wash, and I am coloring the entire jar. Notice that I am working on the first jar that I first painted. So my heart is already in the center. It's already dry, so my red won't run into my green. Now I'm using that darker color that I created, adding a little bit of brown, and I'm just making like the lines for the pickles and adding a little bit of water because I want to do a darker wash. But as soon as I add water, I also want to dab a little bit in my paper just so I don't have too much water that then everything starts running. There's my jar of pickles. I love how it's looking. I am trying to figure it out how I am going to color the rest of that, but I am truly loving how this looks. Cleaning my paintbrush, making sure that I don't have any green left in here because I am gonna start using a new color. Again, I have my 3 reds. Now I'm gonna do 3 greens. So I am coloring the inside of my cup in that green. So you can either think that that is either matcha tea or it's the inside of the cup. And I like how it is. I just did a light wash, and now I'm gonna go with the fabric of this third jar. This is my third use of my green. And then again, I am using my green wash, and now I have the small amount of that darker green that I created with the brown, and that's what I'm using. I'm dabbing my paintbrush just to eliminate a little bit of water so it's just pulling color instead of adding color. So one of the things about watercolors is that if you have an error, you can like dry your paintbrush pretty heavily, And once you add it to your the area that you painted, you're actually pulling the color or erasing the color. Here I decided that I want to try to see if I can match that peach color that it's in the It's Apple Season paper. And what I'm using is that bright orange that is in this set. And I'm like, I looked and it looks pretty good. That is the original orange, and then the one that I added, white. And I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm gonna go for it. So I'm gonna color my fabric on my pickle jar because I'm pretty sure that it's dry already because I color my matcha and I'm mixing colors. And I don't, even though I love watercolor, I don't use a lot of water when using my watercolor. So for here, I am explaining that when I try to add or create a color for matching, I'm trying to analyze what color is in here. For that peach, I'm going to think orange. Orange, I'm going to think red and yellow. So here it has a lot of yellow. So this orange already has a lot of yellow. So I'm not going to add more yellow, but I am going to go with my darker orange and just add a little bit of shadows. Sorry, I'm out of focus there. Now I'm going to go for the peaches. I am calling these peaches, we could call them apples. What else could we call them? Pieces of cantaloupe. So many things. I love this wash and I am almost out of it. So I'm creating a little bit more. And that's when you're going to notice that it's quite a little bit of a different color, which I don't mind because all of the peaches would be different in this jar. And now I'm going back to my original color, but with a little bit of water and just making a little bit of shadows here and there and making the darker color. I probably should have gone with a little bit, oh, I am actually doing it. Added a little bit of red and making those peaches look a little bit more blushed. And I really love how that just really pops. Do notice that I left a lot of open spaces, little bits here and there, and those are going to be my highlights. That's going to help me show you where the sun is hitting. Now, my empty jar, I keep looking at it. I love that red, but I'm thinking, where can I put my third use of this peach? And it's going to be in the raffia that is tied around the neck of that jar. Now I'm going to come with my grays. For gray is a tricky color in watercolor. So to create gray is a black that has been added white. When you add white into a watercolor, it becomes more like a gouache instead of a watercolor. So it's more opaque. So you really have to water it down for it to become translucent. Or if not, you'll notice that my black lines are kind of starting to look gray. And that is because of the opacity of my watercolor. Okay? So if you don't want that to happen, one, you could actually water down a black and use that as a gray. But I actually love this gray because it's more like a silver gray. So I have my 3 lids and I decided that I want to do a few markings on my jars, my empty jar, on my cup. So I am saying, I'm going to call this cup white. So these are just some markings on my cup, some markings on my other jars. I'm going to add a little bit more now that my matcha tea or the inside of my cup is dry. I'm adding a little bit of darker areas. And I am adding a little bit of that gray and add it to the markings of my bottle. I did wait for this to be dry so it wouldn't actually blend together with my peach, okay? Now that I have all my jars, I have this one last jar. And I'm thinking, what color am I going to go with it? What is it going to be? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go with kind of like a strawberry or raspberry jam. So I'm making this really light wash, but I'm actually mixing it on the paper. So my paper is actually pretty watered down, okay? So there's a lot of water on that tiny bit of space. And that's how I can add those colors with the dots with just the point of my brush and create that kind of look like there is actually fruits or seeds floating by in the jam. And I really truly love. So right now I'm touching my images to see if they are dry enough. So you will know that a watercolor is dry when it's not cool anymore. Cool to the touch means you still need to put a little bit more of time to let it dry. Remember when we started all this, all the inspiration was the paper pack. It's apple season from last month's July 2023 box of the month. So here I'm showing you that by using the colors from that color palette, all my images go with every single piece of pattern paper in that set. Like you could use any of these and they look just beautifully, because that is the great way of doing in inspiration and color matching. So now I know that I can cut out some of these little images and I could cut some of these apples and add it to my card. I could use it as a background and it will all look beautifully because I made sure that my colors match at the beginning. Again, this is the stamp of the month for Not Too Shabby for August 2023. And remember, don't leave your crafting for tomorrow. Start today.